everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're really glad to have you. This is part of the We Are Community Builders series as part of the Higher Ed Digital Community Builders Facebook group. Last week in this series, Tyler Thomas from Nebraska did a really great job leading a panel talking about what digital community is and some important determinations of what we need and what we don't need in building community online. So if you missed that, you can find that in the group. That was a really great start to this series, I thought. This week, we're going to drill down a little further and speak through some kind of strategy and tactics in building digital community. So what the name of this session is what really works in digital engagement for building a community, getting strategic, and digging into practical tactics. I'm really glad to be joined by three excellent panelists today who made time to record this amid crazy times, wild times for all of us, but it's move-in weekend for a lot of us, and that means a lot of digital community building. So we're taking an hour away, trying to have a discussion here that I think would be helpful for all of us. So let's meet our panelists. We'll go around and introduce ourselves, let you know where we work and what our role is there. Rachel, let's start with you.
Hi, so I'm Rachel Putman. I'm the Strategic Communications Associate Director at the University of Arkansas, Fort Smith. We are a regional campus, so we have about 6,000 students. And my role consists of social media, also press and PR, and then internal and external communications. So I handle the breadth of communications at our institution. I work within the marketing department, so all of our outbound messaging is very universal, and we all work together and work really closely as a team, so that's really nice. And I'm just really happy to talk about communities.
Thanks, Rachel. AJ, let's go to you next.
I'm AJ Lopez III. I'm the Manager of Digital Marketing and Social Media at Midwestern State University here in Wichita Falls, Texas. I manage a lot of the photography as well as the social content and the strategy, digital marketing a lot, and I'm also part of student affairs, so I deal with that side as well as part of managing social media for the whole university. So it's never a boring day at all in my life. Like any social media person will tell you, every day is another day.
Thanks, AJ. Sam, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Sam Peebles. I'm from Rochester, New York, and I work at Nazareth College. I'm the assistant director for social media, so my hands are always on social media. I do digital campaigns and communications and just customer service-based things for everyone's needs. And I also help with paid social. I work with our digital media analysts to do all the paid campaigns, and I help with the creative team in coming up with new ideas to help recruit students for the enrollment team.
Thanks, Sam. So I'm really thankful for all three of these panelists. Sam, I just heard present at EduWeb. Was it 2 weeks ago? Time is a flat circle now, and I don't know when anything happens, but Sam gave a great presentation there, some stuff they're doing on Instagram. AJ was at EduWeb as well, and I've followed his post closely in the Higher Ed Social Facebook group. Rachel, I actually met through this group, this Digital Community Builders group. So fun to be able to get to know people within the industry and find people within our own communities here. I'm John McBride. I work at BYU, just started a new role a couple weeks ago as Director of Digital Media at BYU. So coming from a role where I was doing more on the ground social media as a media relations and social media manager, and now over higher level social strategy, where we're going to be looking to do a lot more consulting throughout campus and helping build community through kind of the sub accounts and many organizations throughout a large campus, among other things. But glad to be with you all. I'm glad to be here together. We'll jump into some questions here. First off, and Tyler and his group addressed this really well last week, but I think it's important for us to have some context within our conversation today. I want to ask our panelists here, what digital community means to you and why that's been important at your institution. Whoever wants to go first with that one, go for it.
I guess I can talk about one thing this week we've really been focusing on is pushing out Q&As. So in the past, we've done live videos with our students doing the live videos, but because of COVID-19 and there's been a lot of questions about that, we didn't want to put that just on our students. So we've been hosting multiple Q&As through Instagram, building that community relationship between the students so they know that they can come to us with questions. We'll get back to them fairly quickly, as well as giving them the correct information so they don't have to go out there and, post something that may be a little bit unflattering, but that may not be the correct information as well. So we're trying to establish that very early on, even before they get here, so that they understand that we're going to be here. We're going to try and help them as much as we can and get them the correct and the best information for them to make their decisions.
I love that, AJ. I think within a community, providing people the information they need is just such a basic necessity, and we can overlook that sometimes, right? As we get into more complex tactics and things we need to accomplish, just getting people the right information in the right way is awesome. And I love that idea of having students facilitate that to get that kind of peer-to-peer communication. I think that'll be something we'll talk about more today.
I think also that right now, all of our communities are digital communities. So if you have set a tone at your institution, which luckily I think most of us have, that the internet is somewhere that you can find information, whether it's on the website or on social or in a private message, or even in a video that's only outbound, but you're getting the information you need. We were really happy that we had created a culture where our students felt like they could ask us questions on social, because we had so much to tell them. And a lot of times the information that they're hearing, we're a system school. So maybe they heard the University of Arkansas did whatever, and they don't know, well, is that me? Or, in our state, our public schools, so our K-12 got pushed back 2 weeks for opening. Well, does that mean we got pushed back 2 weeks? And they can ask us those one-on-one questions, even when it's on the FAQ. So the FAQ says, UAFS starts on August 17th. But if you're hearing it and you're worried and you're like, well, I don't know if the website is up to date, you can just send us a quick Twitter message and they know that we'll respond within, a few minutes, hopefully. If it's at 2 a.m., maybe the next morning. But building that culture of trust means that your communities, even if they didn't start as digital, are able to function digitally. So when we're all apart, when there's so much confusion, when we're in the midst of a pandemic, we have these communities that can function digitally. And it's been really nice to know that the work we've been doing is helping, and also that, to see the work that we can do in the future to make this a whole functioning enterprise of digital communities.
I love that, Rachel. Thanks. Yeah, it really seems like it's been a necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing over the last number of months, where, if we didn't have digital community before, we certainly have some semblance of it now, right? Even if it's just out of necessity. And I think that's what's been really cool about Josie creating this group in and of itself, where we can really drill down and kind of talk through best practices here, because you're right, we all need to have some form of it now, especially when our physical communities can be gone in the snap of fingers. It's crazy how quickly that can be taken from us. Sam, anything you want to add on this about digital community is for you and how that works at Nazareth?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand that we're customer service. We need to remember that that's where our students are at, and trends are constantly changing. So it's Gen Z now, right? So they're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We need to understand where they are. And not only that, but this generation is extremely impatient, and they don't like barriers or inconvenience convenience. So we need to understand that, okay, we want to give them the simplest bit of information in the easiest way possible. So instead of posting it on our website, making them jump through hoops to get there, social media is like, in digital communities, are the direct, easy way to get them that information so they don't need to jump through those hoops. So I think it's just really important to remember, like, to keep up with the trends, like get on those new platforms and to be super authentic. I know, John, you heard me talk a lot about authenticity, and I think Gen Z also gets really intimidated, and they're used to their parents like spoon feeding them and giving them all the information, but this is like the easy way for them to get their information. It's not super intimidating, and it's a two-way conversation. So it's not us feeding them the information, it's a conversation.
I love that. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue into what we want to talk about here. And really this next part could be the entire remainder of our discussion, but really getting into what are the best practices. You know, we've talked about the need for digital community and the necessity of it now. Now, what are the best practices in building this? I love this initial takeaway that's come out of like true customer service in the community, because I think that's so important. And yeah, being authentic in that customer service. I think being patient in that customer service does a lot for your community. It's pretty easy to get upset with an Instagram DM or someone asking the same question over and over, or a question that's easily accessed through the last thing you posted on your account, or something that could be Googled easily. But man, that's kind of a basic community building thing, right? When people have questions, we've got to answer those. So let's get a little bit more broad. And if you want to think of examples you can share, AJ, you shared a great example already, but what are some more examples of things that you've been involved in that have built community, and maybe a best practice or principle that we can pull from that?
I'll start with just kind of a spinoff of what Sam said with authenticity and then customer service. There are lots of small tactics and large strategies that we can use to sort of propel ourselves forward. But right now, when we're in COVID times, it's these small tactics that have big meaning. So answering every message, not having a stock response. I might answer the same question 3 times within an hour. But I try not to send a straight up copy paste. I'll try to say, okay, here's that copy paste with exactly what you've asked. Because sometimes, they're asking the same question, but they're coming at it from a different lens. They're coming at it with a different concern. And so I try to be really authentic, because they're being authentic with their concerns. They're being vulnerable. And so allowing that vulnerability to shape how you respond, I might only be able to say, we don't know this thing. But I can say it, I understand that you're concerned about this, and here's how we're working to find that answer for you. And I think in terms of community building, if you don't have that trust, that authenticity, if they don't know that someone's going to respond, you lose them really fast. And so, we can call it customer service, we can call it authenticity, we can call it rapid response, but as long as we're rapidly answering those questions to the best of our ability. And sometimes that means recruiting other people to help. So, I have no problem asking my director, hey, can you take over this project, or can you help me manage these Twitter inquiries? Because we have 50. And knowing you have a team, but also knowing that that's important is, a huge tactic. You can't just let those messages go unread.
Yeah, totally agree. And maybe one follow-up to that for you, Rachel. A question that I'm seeing pop up more and more recently is, how do you decide when something is worth responding to and when something isn't worth responding to? What are kind of those triggers where this is something I'm not going to get into, or this is a comment I'm not going to.
So we have a new chancellor. She started a year ago, so she has had really a wild ride with us this year. And her philosophy is transparency and communication. So we have support all the way from the top to respond to almost everything. If we have an answer, we'll respond. And if we understand the concerns. So maybe we don't have an answer, but it's a valid concern. We respond to that too. I did a session out with some of our on-campus communities to talk about our best practices from the marketing office and also how we can help them with their smaller accounts. And they said, well, what's the limit? Is it like 20? Is it like 50? What's the limit of questions you'll answer? And I was like, well, the limit is all of them. I mean, I don't set a number limit. I don't set a time. If I'm getting messages, I say, hey, I need to answer these. And so, there are some where if they just are hostile and there's nothing you can say and they haven't voiced a concern, they're just like, man, I hate this institution. We might send them a DM and say, can you explain? Can we help? Maybe you're just frustrated with your FAFSA and we have people who can help you with that. But, we might not engage publicly. But it's also knowing yourself and your audience. So is that something where I can add value? Is that something where they want something from me? Or are they just venting? I vented a lot when I was 20, luckily not on social media. But I think it's fair to vent when you're frustrated. And there are lots of things at an institution that are frustrating. So, we try to respond every time we can if we have value to add.
That's awesome. I think that's a great consideration is where can we add the most value? Even if we're kind of doing triage of what to respond to, where can we add value? And like you said, if there's someone who's just completely trolling us, I think it's a consideration of, what do we do with this? Is it worth our time to engage? And I love that tactic of let's maybe take this out of the public sphere. That's something I've noticed a lot in people who are really upset or just want to vent. When you can get them into a private DM and when all of the public lights are off of them, the kind of spectacle, the lack of spectacle can calm them down a little bit where they can see, okay, like other people aren't watching. I don't have to put on a show here. I can just kind of be authentic and vulnerable and talk about these issues a little more calmly. I think that's great tactic. AJ or Sam, anything to add about kind of responding to comments or anything else in this realm of tactics here?
To quote Mean Girls, the limit doesn't exist. I know earlier this year around April and May, so we really had our live shows going on and we were using only directors, only VPs. They were answering questions straight for Facebook Live. There was no filter on it, without trying, but we had a lot of people, getting their questions answered. And that was the early work that we started because we really didn't know where this pandemic would be going. So we started the work early. The big thing that we really pushed was a lot of our VPs, our directors were getting on social and we're answering this. And I don't always suggest this, but they created that authenticity by answering it from their personal profiles. They were on as well as in the comments. So when it wasn't their turn to be a panelist that day, they were in the comments as well, trying to clear up stuff for others that may not know the answers right off the back. And we ended it, with our president also appearing on the panel as well, letting people know what was going on. That was a series of live videos we did, and it went really well. It started laying that groundwork for what would be coming in the next few months, and it was kind of a great thing for us to kind of get in it early, because we didn't know we'd still be in the pandemic at this time. So it was nice to have all that groundwork laid out.
AJ, that's got to be nice. So you shared a couple of examples here of whether students or administrators being able to use them as human voices for your brand, right? Can you speak a little bit more to that strategy, and are there other ways you're trying to do that as well, and maybe why that's so important, that it's not just what that really facilitate faces and humans to represent your brand?
When we did it, the big thing was, make them human. We kept talking about that. They kept asking me, why aren't we using ADs? Why aren't we using, other people down the line that might know these answers or be able to do it better. We're like, no, we need the directors, we need the VPs, we need to humanize them so they understand that, you know, we don't like any of this either. We don't want to be in a pandemic. We're trying to solve these problems, but it isn't easy. And we wanted to humanize that. And it almost, you know, it gave them a sense of that we're all in this together kind of thing. It would have been easier just to send people that, you know, are used to this kind of stuff. But we were able to, you know, use people who are the decision makers. And they were able to not only get some feedback straight from our audience, but they were also able to, you know, give the correct answers right there and then, that, you know, sometimes we have to wait a little bit to get it straight from higher up. So that was a way that really humanized them, and people understood very quickly that, you know, we're trying to, you know, get through all of this rather quickly when we really don't know all the answers yet.
That's awesome. It's interesting to look back because I remember maybe even 5 to 7 years ago, there seemed to be this shift in digital communities where, you know, at the beginning of social media marketing, people just thought it was cool that a brand was on social, right? Like all Target had to do was make a Facebook page, and people thought, oh man, like I can ask a question to Target and they're going to respond to me. Like, that's so cool. And we saw an evolution of brands like trying to use human voices. The whole Wendy's thing on Twitter is a case study in and of itself. But there was kind of this feeling of like, how do you make your brand feel more human? But it seemed like something's like a switch has flipped over the last few years where it's like, instead of just trying to make your brand sound human, how about we use actual humans that are part of our brand, right? Like, it seemed like that was a no-brainer all along, but we've really leaned into that, and man, what a great way to build community. I was talking to someone at another institution a little while ago, and again, back to this necessity is the mother of invention thing. He brought up a really good point that even our communities being able to see faculty and administrators in their own homes during the pandemic has really humanized things and created a level of empathy as well, right? Where students can see, oh, yeah, like my professor is teaching this class over Zoom with 3 kids and a dog running around in the background, like we're in this together, and man, that humanizes a brand really interestingly. We had one example where we had a group of professors in our school of education who were trying to put together a graduation video, where I think this was more of an ambitious task than they thought it would be, but they all had like a sheet of paper they were holding to spell out congratulations. So like on Zoom, one's going C and one's going O and one's going N, and they're supposed to like bounce around to say congratulations to the graduates. They kept getting it out of order, and they were recording the Zoom call like we are today. But they kept, like, someone kept going early. They're all cracking up and like kind of poking fun at themselves of not being able to use this digital tool very well. They recorded the whole thing and they shared it to their audience on social, and it was this very humanizing, kind of empathetic, fun, quirky thing that their community really enjoyed. So this idea of us all being in this together, I think is really cool. Sam, anything you want to say to build off of that or otherwise?
Yeah, 2 things. Just one, at NAS, we talked about it in our presentation, but because of the flood of questions, because of COVID and moving back to campus and reopening, we were getting flooded with questions on social. So to try to kind of filter those questions and make sure that they're being answered timely and by the right person, we created a submission form on our website, on the Return to Campus webpage, to submit a question, because a lot of people have the same questions. So they would submit it, and then we would turn those into FAQs on the webpage. So if someone had that question, they could find it instead of having to resubmit a new question. And all of them got filtered onto a spreadsheet, and we had hands on it across campus. So if it's a question for someone in financial aid, Jan, the head of financial aid, is already there, and she can just go in and type the answer, and we can send it out or add it to the FAQ on the webpage. It just really limited the amount of questions we were getting flooded with on social. I got my life back. Like, it was great. So I think it was just really a genius idea on my department's part, and it's been really helpful for us during these crazy times. And then to your point, like going off of like humanizing things and being authentic, I'm just a huge sucker for user-generated content. And so especially with COVID, when we couldn't be on campus, we had people submit videos to us to make it authentic. So we made a graduation video asking parents to submit words of congratulations, and we like slammed them together, and it was just the cutest thing, and everyone loved it. So yeah, I really like to focus on what content gets a lot of engagement and kind of go off of that. And our user-generated content just does great because students want to see what the experience is actually like. And I can't tell that as well as a student who's actually living it can. So that's kind of like my motto is use user-generated content whenever you can get your hands on it.
Yeah, so important. I like to phrase that as like, user-generated content, I think, helps us really speak more with our community than just at our community. And I think that's a part of using humans in general, right? Is that when we're community building, we don't want to just keep throwing information out and speaking at our community, but how can we speak with them is so important. And that user-generated feel, like just even the feel of it can communicate that, right? We have two award-winning photographers at BYU who AJ works with sometimes, I know, through the UPAA system. But they win these national awards every year. They take these phenomenal photos. We're so glad to have them. But like their super polished, incredible photos just won't perform as well on Instagram sometimes as just a user-generated shot on a phone, kind of in the moment type thing. Like it's really incredible to see that difference in feel and perspective and literally seeing something through a different lens, right? Like the student perspective is just so different that they can see things and frame things in a way that we can't. AJ or Rachel, any other thoughts on user-generated stuff and how that builds community?
Yeah, so I actually have a team of student workers, and they create content and they send me content. But when we all went remote, it was so interesting to see their content generation increased because they were home and they were like, let me talk to all my friends. We're going to make this video. It's going to be so cute. And, they really embraced having this ability to build a community among themselves. And they thought these great ideas, and maybe it was because they were home watching TikTok, but we had these great TikToks that were so fun that I probably couldn't have gotten that level of engagement with on campus because they were busy and working through things. But having a team of students who will not only give you, great content and go out and do their work and engage with people of their own age, but who will also tell you no, I think is really important. So we will run, if we have an important email to send, we'll run it by them. Like, hey, can you check this out? What do you think? And they'll say, way too long. That's too long. I want to know exactly what it is. And so we've started doing bulleted emails. It doesn't sound as pretty and fancy and, but what they want is the bullets. And so when we are able to ask them, are we communicating with you in a way that you like, that you can consume reasonably, it's a lot easier when they're not only generating the content, but giving us feedback on our content. They also will tell me, so when we first started our TikTok, we started it last summer, and my student worker who works with me over the summer said, okay, I'm going to ask my friends because I'm not totally sure about this. And so she went and polled a bunch of people she knew, and she said, well, nobody loves it. They're really worried it's not going to be fun. And I was like, oh, they think I'm not fun, And it's easy to feel like, well, is the stuff we post not fun? But the truth is, the stuff we post on Instagram isn't always fun. It's a lot of communication. It's a lot of look at how beautiful our campus is. The stuff we post on Twitter is almost always informational. And so going into creating a TikTok with that tone, we have a lot of dances, we have a lot of fun like cuts, and none of it is very informational, but it gives us a way to connect with those students who are Gen Z and are on TikTok, and start that conversation. So being able to listen to my student workers is so helpful, not only when they can give me content and take photos of what they think is pretty, or interview people that they think are important who maybe I never see, but they also can tell me, you know, I don't know about this idea. Are you going to do it right? And then we can shape our content that way.
Man, I love that. I want to come back to that idea of not just user-generated content, but user feedback in content, I think is so important. I want to come back to that, but AJ, I want to get your perspective as a photographer on this whole user-generated versus kind of polished, produced stuff.
Well, first off, Rachel, thank you for that idea. I've made sure to write it down, the bulleted emails. It's probably something we'll look at. So we actually have a saying like, shoot for Instagram. So that's probably why I haven't won any awards lately. One of the big things we always talk about is like where our audience is. So we're always trying to go hit that 4x5. So a lot of our photos, we're trying to hit that. So it's not necessarily the horizontal, it's more the vertical, which is a big thing now that we're really pushing, which is making our magazine people really happy. So that's one thing. It just, you know, shooting for that content, you know, we always talk about it. The picture is this big, make sure the center is where you get as much of your content. It's not going to look great on a wall, but it's going to look great on social. And so that's been a big thing. Also, we switched over to Sony cameras for that reason, being that Sony has really good mobile tools. And so we can get from the camera, a really good quality picture from the camera, straight to the phone within seconds, edit it real quick in Lightroom, and it's on social within about 5 minutes from when we took the photo. So that's been a really big thing that has created our workflow. And not only that, but I don't have to edit later sometimes. So it also takes out a lot of work.
I love that we're getting to this really powerful takeaway of truly understanding our community needs and not necessarily just needs, but wants even as well. Like what are their preferences in consuming this content? So Rachel, let's go back to your student team. You say you had 10 student workers that you like pay?
5. I have 5.
I'm not sure where I got 10 from. That was me like doing some wishful thinking up there. Yeah. So 5 student workers that you pay, and tell us a bit more about how that's structured, what their workload is, how you have the funding to do that. I think a lot of people would be interested in, and kind of how that came about.
So we have a small staff. And so several years ago, I said, I can't do all of this. We can't get the amount of content we need. I was the photographer for our campus as well. So, you know, there aren't enough of me. And at the time, our chancellor, which is now an interim and our new chancellor ago, said, you know, give her whatever she wants. We pay the student workers minimum wage. That's what they get. And, you know, there might be some federal funding out there for federal student workers. Just, you know, see what she needs. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I have 1 federal student worker. So that helps with the funding. And then we have 4 university student workers, and their duties are really split. So it's a little easier to justify. So I have 1 student worker who is purely social media. So she has a device that I have given her that has all of our accounts loaded onto it. She can also give that device to other people. So if we have a takeover, they take the device, and that gives us a little more control without limiting them and without having to change our password every day. We also, one of them runs our Lions of UAFS account, which is sort of a spinoff that I inherited from, you know, Humans of New York. I let them take it away. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to kill this account, but if I don't, would you like to take a stab at it? And they wrote this purely for social content where they did these very short form interviews, and the engagement was through the roof. I mean, I have never seen anything like it. And it was because they were interviewing people that they interacted with, that they saw. And so, you know, the woman at the dining hall who smiles at you every time, that's not someone that I interact with. You know, I'm not having dinner on campus at 7:00. That the engagement was one of our most popular posts ever, because everyone knew Miss Lisa. And now I know Miss Lisa. And now, you know, our chancellor knows Miss Lisa. The sunshine just really blasted in here. Sorry about that. So just letting them find the people to interview, letting them see who they want to interview has really boosted our engagement. So that's a great tactic too. Asking students, who would you like to hear from? They also did one of the custodians who is just really nice to them. And she just works in the student housing and they just love her. That was also one of our most popular posts. It wasn't a faculty who's curing cancer. We love those posts. We put them in our magazine, but sometimes that's not the most recognizable face to our students. And then I also have one who does solely photography, and the other two kind of bounce between photography and whatever other stuff we can have them do. So by spreading out the duties, it helps me justify them a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really helpful, I think, to see that model. Sam, do you have something similar with student workers, or a mechanism of either getting that user-generated content or user-generated feedback?
Yep, so I also have a team of student workers. We actually are blessed and we can have like up to 10. I find it difficult to recruit that many students because our campus is extremely small. We have like 2,500 to 3,000 students, and like it's like pulling teeth sometimes to get them to buy in. But we have a student blog page where they can blog and write different blogs about the student experience, because I think that's super important. It's conversational and it's a way that students can get directly. And they also run the social media accounts. I kind of distribute the work differently, where I let them get their hands on different things because a lot of them are majoring in different things. So one of my student workers is a theater major, but he has a minor in communication and media. So he loves photography on his own account, but he also wants to get his hands more so on like captioning. So it's kind of like whatever they want, but I will distribute the work evenly where it's needed. So if I need someone to run the account for the day, I'll be like, I need you to do this. I would say nobody ever uses more than like 2 to 3 hours of work per week. Like it's not like they're in the office constantly. So I think that's why we're able to fund so many students. We have so many because a lot of them are so busy that they can't work multiple hours. So it kind of works out where we get them when we need them. So I think it's great for user-generated content, but also we just get tagged in a lot of things, and I'm constantly stalking, looking for hashtags, looking for people who have named Nazareth College as their location for a photo, and just sliding into their DMs and saying, hey, can I use this? This is great. And usually they're very nice about it, and then just giving them the credit that they deserve. So yeah, it's a lot of wrangling and both using my students and stalking.
I think this is really helpful to look at. This wasn't an area that I predicted that we'd talk about today, that this kind of mechanism for user-generated content and how kind of our setup plays into that. But as I think more about community building tactics, like this is about so much more than just, oh, like word this post this way or ask this question or here's one weird trick. Like it really does come down to how our internal community is set up to operate, right? How we as a communications office or student affairs or whatever your digital community is out there, like how you're set up to operate is going to speak a lot to the type of community engagement you're going to get, because I just think this point is so important that you and really utilizing different voices and different perspectives and making sure we have the right content for our community. AJ, anything you want to say to how you utilize students specifically?
My favorite thing with the student, I think whenever Animal Crossing came out, she made all these, clothes for Animal Crossing that were, MSU Texas. And she just told me one day, she's like, hey, I made these. Can we push them online anywhere? And I saw them and I was like, where did you find the time for this? And so, yeah, we pushed them immediately and it got a lot of great feedback. And it was one of our most liked posts for that month. And then they even took it further and they put it on our monthly newsletter. So it got a lot of traction out of just, an Animal Crossing post. That was my videographer student who did that. So I have I'm going to have 4 students this year. One is my talent, and she's also in charge of our TikTok. And she's the one who basically gets everyone that I need to for whenever we're doing like video shoots, photo shoots, any of that kind of stuff. She knows where to find people. And then I have my videographer who just graduated a week ago. So we're hiring a new one. And yeah, I'm going to miss her. And then I have a grad student she's running one of trying to get our social a little bit more fun. So she's running another different social, as well as monitoring our other one whenever I need to take a break. And then we have another one who all she does is the photography part, and then she goes out if we need video part. She'll also be doing second talent as well for one of our shows that's exploring the falls that we have on YouTube. So we've really pushed the whole user-generated content, especially because I'm wearing a lot of hats now. So I need that help from our students all the time. And so it's a lot of fun. I don't know how Rachel gets away with minimum wage. We have to compete for our students a lot. So I wish we could do it that, but we actually have to pay quite a bit for keeping a lot of our students because we're competing with areas around around the town and as well as around the university for trying to keep these students. So ours especially get paid a lot more. So keep that in mind that if you want to keep these, you're going to have to pay them a little bit more. That's just the big thing that we've learned.
I love that. All of our student workers across campus, no matter what their job is, have the same wage. So I think that's maybe a campus thing. But yeah, so I don't get to set their salary. That's just what it is. It is. We have lost some.
Yeah, that's really interesting that it's a flat salary model at UAFS. We've found the same issue as you, AJ. We've had to keep kind of bumping up and competing for our student workers. But I love that example you shared of Animal Crossing. I think that gets to a really important point here of like that perspective that students have for our community. And sometimes it's a big gap, sometimes it's smaller, but with Animal Crossing and how that blew up, like I was way behind the curve. Even with TikTok, we've all talked about that. Like our students are there before us every time with these tools, right? And so if we're solely relying on our own like social circles or even social media followings, we're probably going to be late to these trends, right? We need students to really help us find the tools. And AJ, you said your student is able to connect you with the people, right? Like the tools and the people to speak to our community the best. I think that's a great takeaway for a lot of people here. I just want to share one other model that we've employed here at BYU where we call it a social media street team, where I have 2 student employees that I employ, and they're paid for their work and full-time on social 20 hours a week. But then we have a street team of about 25 students who aren't paid, but we bring them together and give them pizza once a month. And to Rachel's initial point, like the biggest value that we get from them ultimately is feedback, right? Where we're able to show, okay, here's something we did this last month, here's something we're looking to do, to have some sort of stake in what the university is doing. It kind of makes them feel important and engaged to be able to help shape some social strategy and some social assets. But we try to bring together a pretty diverse group. The only real commonality, and back to Sam's point of Instagram stalking, is that they're all good on Instagram. Like, these are all people that we found on Instagram have really solid, robust, effective, and kind of different styles on Instagram. They don't have to be influencers, but they have some level of social influence on campus. So in different areas, right? So one studies engineering, one's in biology, one's a freshman, one's a senior, one's a married student, different racial identities, trying to make that a diverse group. And that street team has been important for feedback, but then in amplifying key messages too, where when we have something that's super important for our community, I can send out an email really quick and say, hey, street team, we've got this post coming up tomorrow. Here's a look at the content. Like, you get this exclusive look. This is really important. This touches on, a big topic of sexual assault, or, one of these big topics that's really important for our community to be educated about. Can you, like, comment, share? That would really help us. So that model for us has helped our community a lot to be able to get more messaging out there, to shape our messaging a little bit better. And we were blown away at how invested these students are in, and we've asked them what they wanted to get out of it. Like, obviously free pizza is going to be appealing to most college students, but they love it as a networking opportunity for them to meet other, like, power social media users on campus. And again, just having that ability to give feedback and to be involved in the process is appealing to them too. So just another model that's out there that I know a few different universities are using, some sort of street team or student ambassador model like that. Okay, back to TikTok. We've all mentioned TikTok. Rachel, can you share the TikTok that went viral from you guys? It wasn't from your account though, right? It was from a student, the graduation TikTok, and how that kind of came about and how that impacted your community.
Ones went viral, which I think is important to know about TikTok. I got a message that my connection is unstable. Am I good?
You're good now. Yeah, there's a bit of a lag, but you're good now.
Okay. So we had a graduation video, and like most people, we were just burning the midnight oil trying to get this done, because we canceled. It was the system level, so we're not going to have much. That's not have for you. So we had to really spin away to make an amount of time, and no staff videographer. So we had a name scroll video, and then several videos of congratulations, and one for each department. So we had a lot of registrar's office. So their list had an error. So it was an error at the source in the computer. We missed a name, and it was one. We missed one name of all of our graduating students. And so our dean, the dean of her college, felt terrible. And so he went to her house. Luckily, it was a local student. And so he went to her house in his regalia and, kind of distanced, handed her her diploma. And we, took photos and we filmed it. And I was like, this is a really cute little moment. And they kind of like danced a little. And so I just threw it on TikTok. Like, this is cute and fun and sweet, and let's throw it up there. And it had, I think, 500,000 views at last look. It was our most commented by far. We, threw the graduation march on it and just kind of didn't think much else about it. And it just went totally viral. Everyone loved it. They were so happy. She was so happy because, you know, because she felt just really heartbroken. The only thing we gave them was this video at their graduation. And so then she was kind of famous and it just went really well. And it was a correction. And we said, you know, we posted a graduation video and we missed a name. And this is how we made it up to her. And so it wasn't like it wasn't a trick. We didn't pretend. We went to every student's house. We said we made a mistake and here was our attempt to fix it. And I think people really liked that part of it as well, like admitting to a mistake and offering a cute connection. So it went really well.
I thought that was just such a cool example of something that builds community, like to show the care you have for your community. As I hear you share that again, I think it pulls together a lot of best practices we've been talking about today. The level of authenticity and personalization and utilizing humans. But I just think it's so funny because I think a lot of people we work with at our institutions, if you haven't heard like this verbatim, you've probably heard something like it, like, oh, can we like how do we make this go viral, or can we make this piece of content go viral? And it's like an institutional message or announcement. Like, no, like we don't have a magic trick to make this go viral, but the stuff that goes viral is that unexpected kind of personal, yeah, we made a mistake, and it's the stuff we never would expect go viral, right? But being nimble and being able to kind of combine a whole bunch of best practices along with timing, I think it can really be effective and really help our community and help that content really spread. So yeah, I thought that example was so cool.
And that dean had actually just taken over that week as the dean. And so it was so funny to see the comments, because I think for anyone taking a new job, it's a little nerve-wracking, and he doesn't love being in the public eye, but he does love students. And so I was sending him these comments like, is Dean beloved on your campus? Because he just seems like everyone would love him. And I was like, he is beloved. He would hate this. But you know, showing someone genuinely caring about students resonated. And everyone could tell, like, he wanted to do this. No one pressured him to make this correction. And you could tell.
Love that. Okay, we're getting into our last 5 minutes here. Over to AJ and Sam. At any general tactics or anything you came in today's discussion with that you thought, oh, like here's one thing I really want to share that we haven't been able to get to. If there's anything like that, feel free to share that. If not, another question is like, what are future engagement tactics that you're maybe looking at or wanting to implement in the future, or getting inspiration from somewhere else about? Sorry, I threw like 7 questions out there, but you can pick any element of that to go off of if you want.
I was just going to talk about right now, kind of our heads are down in return to campus, everything, and like, oh my God, how's campus gonna look? Are people gonna comply with what we're doing? Is campus gonna be able to stay open? We've already experienced some difficulties in the first couple days of move-in. So I think this semester we're really focused on that. In a campaign that I'm working on right now is called #WhyIComply. So trying to get students to comply with new rules and health and safety guidelines on campus using peer-to-peer messaging and being fun and goofy, and again, using students instead of using the authoritative figure from health and counseling saying, wear your mask. So we also use #Don'tBeThatFlyer, because like don't be that guy is really popular among people who have to wear face masks in public. So I used my puppy as an example on TikTok, and I showed all the incorrect ways of wearing your mask, and I put him in, you know, we had the blindfold, the necklace, the earring, and like it just got tons of views and engagement because it was fun and goofy, and like they were able to relate to it and they enjoyed that. So that's kind of the content that I'm looking to push out because I'm social. again, it should be conversational, it should be peer-to-peer. So that's kind of our way of getting students to comply on campus, is not acting like their mother and telling them to wear a mask. It's, we all want to be here with you, so do it for the community, and just really honest and authentic content for that campus.
That sounds like an awesome campus.
I think I know right now we're really looking at things in the background. We're looking at policies. We're looking at stuff, especially with the First Amendment. That's been a big thing for us. So we're looking at that and how that works in social. We've even been talking to attorney generals in Texas. That's something we're just looking at in general. And then we're also moving to a new system in next year if everything works out. So those are a couple of things on my radar. But I think also we're still trying to put in things more in place for, that speak to, our to Black students, that speak to our Hispanic students, to LGBTQI. We're trying to create more content that's kind of geared towards that. We've done a good job of making that representation, but now we really need to push content that kind of speaks to that. And I think that's something we're working on right now for the future. I know Hispanic Heritage Month will be the first one that's coming up. So we're going to try a couple of things there first. It should help. I'm Hispanic, so I know this world really well. So.
That's awesome. Thanks, AJ. And really, I think that could be a whole other hour to speak to those important issues, right? Creating engaging content surrounding important and sometimes difficult topics could be its own panel discussion, but I think that's maybe a good place for us to leave it today, that's something that I'd encourage all of us to think through. How can we use these strategies and tactics and examples we've talked about today, pull those principles and use those in really speaking to issues that are the most important on our campus and can impact especially marginalized students or students who are struggling right now. I think we've got a great opportunity to do that. But Rachel, Sam, AJ, thank you so much for your time today, your insights. This is a crazy time of year for all of us, and so thank you for making time. You've probably got like 50 notifications on your phone right now to get back to, so good luck with all of that, and thank you to all of you for joining us today.